All right, so in this video, we're going to be taking a look at volume specifically, and we're going to be taking a look at finding the missing part. So typically with volume problems, you're given the height, you're given the radius, and you need to solve for the volume. So in this video, we're going to specifically be taking a look at, given the volume, how can I find either the height or the radius or diameter, depending on what it's asking me for. All right, so first thing that we need to recap is the formulas. So cylinder volume equals pi radius squared times height. For cone, we have volume equals pi radius squared height divided by 3. And for sphere, we're dealing with volume equals 4/3 pi radius cubed. So we need to use those formulas for each of these examples that we are going to be working with. So you know you love me with the puffy clouds. We got to make sure that stands out. All right, so for this first problem, we're going to be taking a look at cylinder, which means we're going to be using our cylinder formula. So the information they give me is they tell me that the volume is 72 pi, and they tell me the radius is 6. Okay, so knowing those two pieces of information, we need to find the height. So we need to make sure we're reading exactly what it is that they want from me. All right, so we're going to start off with the cylinder formula. So I'm going to write it, and I need to make sure that I have this V here because that part is very important in terms of solving. Okay, so I cannot forget him, and I must have that equal sign along with it. All right, so in my story, they tell me that the volume is 72 pi. So I'm going to take out this V, and I'm going to put 72 pi in its place. Okay, so we still have the equal sign. They don't tell me to use anything for pi, so the pi symbol is going to stay just that. Okay, they tell me that the radius is 6. All right, so I'm going to take out this R, and I'm going to put in a 6. And I still don't know my height, so he is going to stay H. Okay, so the goal of this now is to solve so that H is by itself. So I need him by himself. All right, so the first thing that I need to notice, okay, is what's happening to H. So H is being multiplied by 6 squared, and H is being multiplied by pi. So what I can do then is I do the opposite operations in order to get that by itself. So first thing I can do is I can divide by pi. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. All right, so when I divide pi on the right, these pi's cancel. And when I divide pi on the left, these pi's cancel. So I am left with 72 equals 6 squared times height. Now I could also change the 6 squared to its number. 6 times 6 is in fact 36. So 6 times 6 is in fact 36. So I could change this to the number 36 if I wanted to as well. All right, so again, we're still multiplying by H, which means I'm going to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 36. So here I have my handy dandy calculator. So we have 72 divided by 36. So I have then H equals 2. So I go back to my question, what is the height? The height is 2, and then it would be whatever measurement I'm dealing with. All right, so in order for me to get a volume of this with a radius of this, I must have the height of 2. All right, so we're now going to take a look at another cylinder example, and in this one, it's going to ask me for something different. This one tells me the volume is 20 pi, the height is 5, and so this time it wants me to know what is the radius. So last one I solved for height, this one I'm going to solve for radius. All right, so I'm still going to start off with my magical formula. So we're going to start off with volume equals pi radius squared times height. And now I'm going to fill in the pieces and parts. Volume is 20 pi. So we're going to take out the v and we're going to put in 20 pi. We're going to keep our pi. We're going to keep our radius squared. And then we're going to take out our height and put in the number 5. Okay. So now I just go into solve mode based on what I have in front of me. All right, so here I have multiplication and multiplication. I'm going to do this now in one step. I'm going to divide by 5 pi. And what I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. This pi cancels this pi. This one cancels this one. This 5 cancels this 5. So I have 20 divided by 5, which is 4, equals, and I'm left with r squared. Now, a lot of times we end here. We cannot end here. I want to know what is the radius. The radius squared is 4. So to find the radius, we need to undo squared. So the opposite of squared, remember, is square root. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. So the square root of 4 is 2. And square root is canceled. So the radius is 2. Okay, so that is with working with cylinder and how to undo and redo the formulas. All right, so let's take a look at our other two shapes just to make sure we kind of know what's going on with them. So first and foremost, with a cone, we have a volume of 12 pi and we have a height of 4, and the question is, what is the diameter? So again, we start with the formula. Volume equals pi radius squared times height, and we're going to divide it by 3. We're then going to fill in our pieces and parts. So volume is 12 pi. The height is 4. And we have to divide all of this by 3. Okay, so now dealing with cone, the first thing that we actually have to do each and every time that we're working with this is we have to get rid of the divided by 3. So we got to get rid of this divided by 3. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to undo divided by 3. And to undo divided by 3, we're going to multiply by 3. Because those 3's will then cancel. So 3 times 12 is 36. And then we can rewrite this other side. Now that I have this component, now you're doing exactly how you did with the cylinder. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to divide by pi and 4. We're going to divide by 4 and pi. And again, because it's multiplication, I can rewrite it any direction I want. I rewrote it this way so I can just simply cross things out that are alike easily. 36 divided by 4 is in fact 9. And that's my radius squared. And so remember, we need to undo squaring. So to undo something that is squared, we do the square root. So that means my radius would equal 3. Now, notice the question is, what is the diameter? So if the radius equals 3, that means the diameter has to be 2 times this radius, which means the diameter has to be 6. Okay? And then last but not least, let's take a look at a sphere. Okay? Because we're dealing with the 4/3, a lot of times the sphere numbers are kind of a little bit more funky monkey. All right, so let's start with the formula. Volume equals 4/3 pi radius cubed. We're going to fill in what we know. The volume is 166 and 2/3 pi. 4/3 is still 4/3. Pi is still pi, and I don't know what the radius is. That's what I'm solving for. All right, so we need to do a couple of things in order to get rid of pieces and parts. Okay? So first thing, because we have this magical calculator of fun, I can say that we can divide by multiplying. So since we're multiplying by 4/3, we can divide by this 4/3. In the perfect world, I like to do the reciprocals, but because this is a mixed number, it makes it a little bit more complicated. So we're going to make sure we have our ABC button handy that we can use. So we're going to say divided by 4/3 pi divided by 4/3 pi. So again, we're doing this because this is multiplication. We undo by division. So these are going to cancel, leaving my r cubed. This pi is going to cancel. So now we got to plug in exactly what we have written. 166 and 2/3 divided by 4/3 equals. So we have 125. And again, that is when the radius is cubed, so we need to undo cubing. All right, so that means we have to take the cubed root of this answer. So to find the cubed root of this answer, we're going to type in that 3, because we want that little 3. We're going to type in second, and then we're going to type this caret, because we want that opposite feature. And then we're going to type in what we have on the inside of 125. So that means my radius of this sphere had to be 5. Okay. So while the concept of volume is not a difficult one, when we're finding out the height or the radius of any of these pieces, you have to keep in mind you're really just solving a two-step or multi-step equation. Do the opposite operation to get that letter by itself. And remember at the end, you needed to say R equals or H equals. If there is an exponent, you need to make sure you're undoing that as well.